In the heart of Manhattan, where skyscrapers kissed the clouds and luxury cars lined the streets, there was an upscale restaurant known for its exquisite cuisine and elegant ambiance. The soft glow of chandeliers illuminated polished wooden floors, while live jazz music floated through the air, creating an atmosphere that whispered sophistication. On this particular evening, billionaire businessman Richard Langley sat at a corner table with his wife, Catherine, and their teenage son, Ethan. For Richard, this dinner was more than just another meal. It was an attempt to make amends. Richard Langley wasn't your typical father. He had built his empire from scratch, rising from modest beginnings to become one of the wealthiest men in the city. But success came at a cost. His relentless pursuit of wealth left little room for personal connections, especially with his family. Ethan, his only child, had cerebral palsy, a condition that made everyday tasks challenging for him. While other fathers might have embraced their son's uniqueness, Richard struggled. Guilt gnawed at him every time he looked at Ethan, reminding him of all the milestones he'd missed because he was too busy closing deals or attending board meetings. That night, however, Richard wanted to change things, or at least try. He, too, had convinced himself that sitting down for a proper family dinner would be a good start. Catherine seemed pleased by the effort, though her smile carried traces of sadness. She knew how hard it was for Richard to connect emotionally, even with those closest to him. As they ordered their meals, the conversation felt forced, filled with awkward pauses and small talk about school and work. Ethan mostly stayed quiet, occasionally glancing around the room with wide, curious eyes. The mood shifted slightly when the band began playing a slow, soulful tune. The melody drifted across the restaurant, wrapping itself around the diners like a warm embrace. Without warning, Ethan started moving. His hands gripped the arms of his wheelchair as his body swayed gently to the rhythm. It wasn't graceful or coordinated. It was raw and unpolished, but it radiated pure joy. Richard froze, unsure of what to do. Should he stop him? Encourage him? Catherine smiled softly, watching her son lose himself in the music, but no one joined him. Not even Richard from across the room, Maya noticed. She was a young waitress balancing trays of food and refilling glasses of water, her feet aching after hours on the job. Maya worked tirelessly to support her sick mother, juggling 2 jobs while dreaming of something better. Her life hadn't been easy, but she carried herself with grace and kindness, always finding ways to brighten someone else's day. When she saw Ethan dancing alone in his wheelchair, her heart melted. There was something so innocent and beautiful about the way he moved, completely unbothered by the stares of other diners. Without thinking twice, Maya approached the table. Setting aside her tray, she knelt beside Ethan and took his hands in hers. "You've got great moves," she said with a warm smile. Ethan grinned back, his cheeks flushing with excitement. Slowly, Maya guided his hands, helping him sway to the music. She didn't care that people were watching or that some might judge her actions. All she cared about was making Ethan feel seen and valued. As the moments passed, Ethan grew more confident. His laughter bubbled up, filling the space around them. Maya laughed too, her voice blending seamlessly with the jazz notes drifting through the air. Together, they created a scene that drew attention, not out of pity but out of admiration. Nearby diners exchanged smiles, some tapping their feet along with the beat. Even the musicians seemed to play with renewed energy, inspired by the unexpected performance unfolding before them. At the table, Richard couldn't look away. His chest tightened as he watched Maya dance with his son. He had never seen Ethan so happy, so free. The guilt he'd been carrying for years surged forward, overwhelming him. Why hadn't he done this? Why hadn't he taken the time to understand his son's world, to celebrate his victories no matter how small? Instead, he had let fear and discomfort keep him at arm's length. And yet, here was this young woman, a stranger, showing Ethan the love and acceptance Richard had failed to give. Catherine reached over and squeezed Richard's hand, her eyes glistening with tears. "She's wonderful," she murmured, nodding toward Maya. Richard could only nod in response. His throat, too tight to speak. He studied Maya carefully, noting the genuine warmth in her expression and the ease with which she interacted with Ethan. There was no pretense, no ulterior motive, just pure kindness. When the song ended, Maya stepped back, still smiling. "Thank you for letting me share the dance floor with you," she told Ethan, who beamed up at her. Turning to Richard and Catherine, she added, "He's amazing." Her words hit Richard like a punch to the gut. How could someone who barely knew Ethan see what Richard had ignored for so long? Unable to stay seated any longer, Richard rose from his chair and walked over to Maya. "Excuse me," he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "I just wanted to thank you for what you did for my son." Maya blinked in surprise, clearly not expecting such gratitude. "It was nothing," she replied modestly. "I used to dance with my little brother all the time. It makes people happy." Her casual remark struck a chord with Richard. He realized then that Maya wasn't doing this because it was part of her job or because she hoped for a tip. She did it because it was who she was, someone who saw beyond barriers and embraced humanity in its purest form. In that moment, Richard knew he had witnessed something extraordinary. This encounter wasn't just about a dance. It was about connection, empathy, and the power of simple acts of kindness. Little did he know this brief interaction would set off a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. After the dance, Richard found himself unable to shake off the image of Maya and Ethan swaying together. It lingered in his mind like a melody he couldn't forget, haunting him with its simplicity and beauty. He had always prided himself on being a man of action, a strategist who approached life with precision and purpose. But as he sat in the back seat of his chauffeur-driven car that night, staring out at the glittering skyline of Manhattan, he felt something unfamiliar: vulnerability. For the first time in years, he questioned whether all his wealth and success truly mattered, if it came at the expense of moments like the one he'd just witnessed. The next morning, Richard arrived at his office earlier than usual. His assistant greeted him with a stack of papers and updates on ongoing projects, but he waved her away. Instead, he pulled up the restaurant's contact information on his laptop and dialed the number. When the manager answered, Richard introduced himself briefly, then asked about Maya, the waitress who had danced with his son. The manager, clearly flustered by the call from such a high-profile client, confirmed her employment and promised to pass along Richard's request for her details. Later that day, Richard received an email containing Maya's phone number and a brief note from the manager explaining that she worked 2 jobs to support her family. As he stared at the screen, his fingers hovered over the keyboard. What exactly did he want from her? Was this about guilt? Gratitude? Or was there something more, something deeper, that drew him to her kindness? That evening, Richard picked up his phone and dialed Maya's number. She answered cautiously, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Hello? Hi, this is Richard Langley," he said, trying to sound calm despite the nervous energy coursing through him. "We met last night at the restaurant." There was a pause on the other end before Maya replied, "Oh yes, Mr. Langley. How can I help you?" "I wanted to thank you again for what you did for my son," Richard continued. "It meant a great deal to me and to him." "It was nothing, really," Maya said softly, her tone humble. "I'm glad I could make him smile." Richard hesitated, unsure how to phrase what he wanted to say next. Finally, he blurted out, "Would you be open to meeting me tomorrow? Just for coffee or something? I'd like to talk to you further." Maya sounded surprised but agreed, perhaps out of curiosity or politeness. They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe near Central Park the following afternoon. After hanging up, Richard leaned back in his chair, feeling both relieved and apprehensive. He wasn't sure what he hoped to achieve by speaking with her again, but he knew one thing for certain. Maya's actions had stirred something within him, forcing him to confront emotions he'd long buried. When Richard entered the cafe the next day, he spotted Maya immediately. She stood out not because of flashy clothes or striking features, but because of the quiet confidence she exuded. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, her dark hair pulled back into a ponytail. As she sipped her coffee, she seemed completely at ease, unaware of the whirlwind of thoughts racing through Richard's mind. He approached her table and extended his hand. "Thank you for meeting me," he said warmly. Maya shook his hand firmly. "Of course, thank you for reaching out." They sat down and Richard ordered a cup of black coffee before turning his attention fully to Maya. "I've been thinking a lot about last night," he began. "About how you interacted with Ethan. You didn't hesitate. You just stepped in and made him feel included. That kind of compassion isn't common these days." Maya shrugged modestly. "It's not a big deal. I have a younger brother. He passed away a few years ago, but we used to dance together when he was alive. It reminded me of those times. Your son has a beautiful spirit, I could see it right away." Her words struck a chord deep within Richard. Her brother, her loss, her willingness to share joy even after experiencing pain. It was humbling, almost overwhelming. He realized then that Maya's kindness wasn't random. It stemmed from lived experience, from a place of profound empathy. "I lost touch with my own humanity somewhere along the way," Richard admitted, surprising even himself with his honesty. "I've spent so much time chasing success that I forgot how to connect. With my wife, with Ethan, with myself. Watching you dance with him made me realize how much I've missed." Maya listened intently, her expression thoughtful. "Sometimes, people just need someone to remind them they're worth seeing," she said gently. "Ethan didn't need anything fancy. He just needed someone to join him in his moment. We all want to feel like we belong." Richard nodded, feeling a lump rise in his throat. He wanted to ask her more questions, to understand how she remained, so grounded despite the challenges life had thrown her way. But instead he decided to act. "Maya, I know this might sound strange," he said, choosing his words carefully, "but I'd like to offer you some help. Financially, I mean, if there's anything you need for your mother, for yourself, I'd be happy to assist." To his surprise, Maya didn't jump at the offer. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying him with. Richard's offer hung in the air between them, heavy with intention. Maya blinked, her dark eyes searching his face for answers. She wasn't naive. She knew what it meant to be on the receiving end of charity, and she also knew how easily kindness could blur into pity. For a moment, she hesitated, weighing her words carefully before responding. "Mr. Langley," she began, her voice steady but soft. "I appreciate the gesture. Really, I do. But I don't want you to feel like you owe me anything because of what happened at the restaurant. That wasn't about money, it was just me being me." Richard nodded slowly, though disappointment flickered across his features. He hadn't expected her to accept right away, but he had hoped she would see his offer as a way to ease some of the burdens she carried. Still, he respected her response. There was a quiet strength in her refusal, a dignity that reminded him, once again, why he was so drawn to her. "I understand," he said finally. "But let me ask you something else. Do you enjoy helping others? Making a difference?" Maya tilted her head slightly, intrigued by the shift in conversation. "Of course," she replied. "It's why I keep doing what I do, even when it's hard. My mom always taught me that no matter how tough life gets, there's always room to lift someone else up." Her words struck a chord deep within Richard. Here was someone who lived by principles he had long abandoned, principles of service, compassion, and purpose. It occurred to him then that perhaps his initial instinct to help her financially wasn't enough. What if he could give her something more meaningful? Something that aligned with her values and allowed her to make an impact far beyond the walls of a restaurant? "What if I told you," Richard continued, leaning forward slightly, "that I have a division within my company dedicated to philanthropy? We focus on initiatives for people with disabilities, programs aimed at improving accessibility, education, and inclusion. The problem is, we've been lacking heart, passion, someone who truly understands the needs of the community we're trying to serve." Maya raised an eyebrow, skeptical yet curious. "And you think I'm that person?" "I do," Richard said firmly. "You've already shown me more empathy and insight in one evening than I've seen from anyone in years." If you're willing, I'd like to bring you on board. Not as a token hire, but as someone who can shape these programs into something real, something impactful. For a moment, Maya didn't respond. Her mind raced with possibilities, doubts, and questions. Could she really step into a role like that? Would she fit into a world so different from the one she knew? And most importantly, could she trust Richard's intentions? "I'm not sure I'm qualified for something like this," she admitted after a pause. "I mean, I've never worked in corporate settings or anything like that. I'm just a waitress." "You underestimate yourself," Richard countered quickly. "Qualifications are important, yes, but they're not everything. What you bring to the table, your perspective, your experiences, your humanity, is invaluable. Besides, I'll make sure you have all the resources and support you need to succeed." Maya chewed on her lip, considering his words. Part of her wanted to say no, to walk away and stick to what she knew. But another part of her, the part that dreamed of making a bigger difference, felt a spark of excitement. This was an opportunity she couldn't ignore, no matter how daunting it seemed. "Okay," she said finally, surprising herself as much as Richard. "Let's give it a shot. But on one condition. I want to stay true to who I am. No pretending to be someone I'm not." Richard smiled, relief washing over him. "That's exactly what I'm counting on," he said. "Be yourself, Maya, that's all I ask." Over the next few weeks, Maya dove headfirst into her new role. Richard introduced her to key members of his team and gave her access to every resource she needed to learn the ropes. At first, it was overwhelming. The sleek offices, the polished executives, the endless meetings, all of it felt foreign and intimidating. But Maya refused to let fear hold her back. She reminded herself daily of why she was there: to create change, to give a voice to those who often went unheard. Her first project involved redesigning a program aimed at providing art therapy for children with disabilities. When she reviewed the existing materials, she immediately noticed gaps, areas where the initiative lacked authenticity and connection. Drawing from her own experiences with her late brother, she proposed incorporating elements of dance and movement into the curriculum. She argued passionately that creativity shouldn't be limited to paintbrushes and paper. It should embrace every form of expression. At first, some of her colleagues were hesitant. They worried about logistics, budgets, and whether such changes would resonate with donors. But Maya stood her ground, presenting data, testimonials, and personal stories that underscored the importance of inclusivity. Slowly but surely, her ideas began to gain traction. Even Richard found himself impressed by her tenacity and vision. As months passed, Maya proved herself indispensable. She brought fresh energy to projects that had previously stagnated, infusing them with heart and humanity. Under her guidance, the foundation launched several successful campaigns, including a nationwide initiative called Dance Without Limits, which provided free dance classes for individuals with disabilities. The program became a beacon of hope for countless families, earning praise from both participants and advocates alike. Meanwhile, Richard underwent his own transformation. Working alongside Maya forced him to confront the flaws in his leadership style. He realized that true success wasn't measured by profit margins or stock prices. It was measured by the lives touched and the legacies left behind. Inspired by Maya's example, he began spending more time with Ethan, learning to appreciate the unique ways his son experienced the world. He attended therapy sessions with him, encouraged his love for photography, and even joined him in impromptu dance sessions at home. Catherine noticed the change in her husband almost immediately. Gone was the distant, preoccupied man she had grown accustomed to. In his place was someone softer, kinder, and more present. Their family dinners became less formal and more joyful, filled with laughter and shared moments. For the first time in years, they felt like a real family again. Through it all, Maya remained humble, refusing to take full credit for the foundation's successes. She credited her team, her mentors, and most importantly, the communities they served. Yet everyone around her, from Richard to her co-workers to the families benefiting from her work, knew the truth. Maya had changed the game. Her compassion, resilience, and unwavering belief in the power of human connection had transformed not only the organization, but also the lives of everyone involved. As Maya settled deeper into her role at Richard's foundation, she faced challenges that tested her resolve in ways she hadn't anticipated. The corporate world was vastly different from the life she had known, and while she carried herself with quiet confidence, there were moments when self-doubt crept in. Some of her colleagues, though polite on the surface, questioned whether she truly belonged in such a high-profile position. Whispers echoed through the hallways, some admiring, others skeptical. "She's just a waitress," one executive muttered during a meeting, loud enough for Maya to hear. "How does she know what's best for these programs?" The comment stung, but Maya refused to let it shake her. She reminded herself why she had accepted the job in the first place, not to prove herself to others, but to create meaningful change for people who needed it most. Still, the pressure mounted as deadlines loomed and expectations grew. Her ideas, once celebrated, now faced scrutiny from those who feared they might alienate donors or stretch budgets too thin. It wasn't easy balancing her vision with the realities of running a large-scale philanthropic organization. One particularly grueling week, Maya found herself buried under reports, proposals, and endless emails. Late nights became the norm, and exhaustion began to take its toll. During a strategy session, a senior manager challenged her latest initiative, a campaign to build inclusive playgrounds in underserved communities. "These projects are expensive," he argued, "and frankly, I'm not convinced they'll bring in the kind of visibility we need." Maya clenched her fists beneath the table, fighting the urge to snap back. Instead, she took a deep breath and responded calmly. "Visibility isn't the goal here," she said, her voice steady despite her frustration. "The goal is to give kids like Ethan and countless others a chance to play, to feel included, to belong. If we lose sight of that, then what's the point of any of this?" Her words silenced the room. Even the skeptics couldn't argue with the sincerity in her tone. Slowly, support for her initiatives began to grow again, bolstered by testimonials from families whose lives had already been touched by the foundation's work. Still, Maya knew she couldn't rely solely on passion to carry her forward. She needed allies, people who believed in her mission as much as she did. That's where Richard came in. Over time, their professional relationship evolved into something resembling friendship. He admired Maya's determination and often stepped in to defend her when critics tried to undermine her efforts. But more than that, he learned from her. Maya taught him the value of listening, not just to donors or board members, but to the communities they aimed to serve. She encouraged him to visit schools, attend events, and meet the individuals benefiting from their programs. Through these experiences, Richard gained a newfound appreciation for the power of grassroots activism and authentic connection. Despite his growing respect for Maya, Richard still struggled with his own demons. While he had made strides in reconnecting with Ethan, guilt continued to haunt him. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was playing catch-up, trying to make up for years of absence. One evening, after a long day at the office, he confided in Maya during an impromptu chat over coffee. "I keep wondering," he admitted, stirring his cup absent-mindedly, "if I'm doing enough. For Ethan, for my family, even for myself. I spent so long chasing success that I forgot how to be present. Now, no matter what I do, it feels like it's never enough." Maya listened intently, her expression thoughtful. "It's not about perfection," she said gently. "It's about progress. Every step you take toward being there for your son matters. You can't change the past, but you can shape the future. And trust me, Ethan sees it. He knows you're trying." Her words struck a chord within Richard. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that it wasn't too late, that he could still repair the broken pieces of his family. Inspired by Maya's resilience, he threw himself into building stronger relationships with Catherine and Ethan. He started small, taking Ethan to photography exhibits and helping him set up a darkroom at home. Together, they captured moments of everyday life, the way sunlight filtered through curtains, the laughter shared over dinner, the quiet joy of dancing in the living room. Each photo became a testament to their bond, a reminder that love didn't have to be grand gestures. Sometimes it was simply showing up. But just as things seemed to be falling into place, another challenge arose, one that threatened to derail everything Maya had worked so hard to achieve. A major donor pulled out of funding a key project, citing budget concerns. Without their support, the initiative, a nationwide arts program designed to empower disabled artists, faced cancellation. Panic rippled through the team, and all eyes turned to Richard. "Can we cover the shortfall internally?" Maya asked during an emergency meeting. Richard hesitated. Redirecting funds would mean sacrificing other projects, potentially angering stakeholders. Yet as he looked around the room, he saw the faces of his team, people who had poured their hearts into this work. Then he glanced at Maya, whose determination shone brighter than ever despite the setback. In that moment, he realized something crucial. Leadership wasn't about control, it was about empowerment. About trusting others to lead and making sacrifices when necessary. "We'll find a way," Richard declared firmly. "This program stays. We'll adjust our priorities and make it work." His decision sent shockwaves through the company, drawing both praise and criticism. Some executives accused him of being reckless, while others applauded his commitment to the foundation's mission. For Maya, however, it was a turning point. Richard's willingness to stand by her vision solidified her belief in the possibility of real change, not just within the organization, but within people themselves. In the weeks that followed, the team rallied together, finding creative solutions to bridge the funding gap. They reached out to smaller donors, organized crowdfunding campaigns, and partnered with local businesses to keep the program alive. When the arts initiative finally launched, it exceeded everyone's expectations. Disabled artists from across the country showcased their talents in exhibitions, performances, and workshops, proving that creativity knows no boundaries. For Maya, seeing the smiles on participants' faces reaffirmed her purpose. This was why she had fought so hard, to remind the world that everyone deserves a platform, a voice, a chance to shine. Through it all, Richard watched Maya grow, not just as a leader, but as a person. Her journey inspired him to reflect on his own growth. He realized that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars and cents. It was measured in the connections we forge and the impact we leave behind. As he stood beside Maya at the opening of the arts exhibition, watching Ethan snap photos of dancers twirling on stage, he felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't known was possible. Together, they had created something extraordinary, not just a foundation, but a movement rooted in compassion, courage, and humanity. And though challenges lay ahead, Richard knew one thing for certain. With Maya by his side, anything was possible. Years passed, and Maya's journey transformed not only her life but also the lives of countless others. From a young waitress struggling to make ends meet, she had risen to become the head of Richard Langley's philanthropic division, a role that allowed her to champion causes close to her heart. Under her leadership, the foundation flourished, becoming a beacon of hope for marginalized communities around the world. Programs like Dance Without Limits and inclusive arts initiatives expanded globally, touching thousands of lives and proving that creativity knows no boundaries. Maya never forgot where she came from. Despite her newfound success, she remained grounded, always prioritizing authenticity over accolades. Her office walls were adorned with photos of smiling children, heartfelt thank you letters, and mementos from families whose lives had been changed by the foundation's work. She often reminded her team that their mission wasn't about numbers or statistics, it was about people. Every decision they made, every dollar they spent, needed to reflect that core belief. Richard, too, had undergone a profound transformation. Once consumed by the relentless pursuit of wealth and power, he now found fulfillment in giving back. He retired early from his corporate empire, choosing instead to focus on rebuilding relationships with his family. Catherine marveled at the change in him. Gone was the distant man who used work as an excuse to avoid emotional connection. In his place stood someone softer, more present, and deeply invested in nurturing the bonds that mattered most. Ethan became Richard's greatest source of pride. With encouragement from both his parents, Ethan pursued his passion for photography with unwavering determination. What started as a hobby blossomed into a career, earning him recognition in galleries and exhibitions across the country. His lens captured moments of joy, resilience, and humanity, qualities he inherited from Maya's influence. Through his art, Ethan told stories that resonated deeply with audiences, reminding them of the beauty found in diversity and inclusion. The relationship between Richard and Maya evolved into something akin to mentorship and mutual admiration. They continued to collaborate on projects, but their bond transcended professional boundaries. Richard often credited Maya with helping him rediscover his humanity, while Maya acknowledged Richard's unwavering support during her toughest moments. Together, they proved that partnerships built on trust and shared values could achieve remarkable things. One evening, several years after Maya joined the foundation, Richard hosted a gala to celebrate its achievements. The event took place in a grand ballroom filled with glittering chandeliers, elegant centerpieces, and the soft hum of conversation. Guests included donors, advocates, artists, and families whose lives had been touched by the Foundation's programs. As the lights dimmed and the program began, Richard stepped onto the stage to deliver the opening remarks. "Tonight," he began, his voice steady yet warm, "we gather not just to celebrate accomplishments but to honor the spirit of compassion that drives us forward. This foundation exists because of one extraordinary woman who taught me, and all of us, that true success lies in lifting others up." The crowd erupted into applause as Maya walked onto the stage, visibly moved by Richard's words. She accepted the microphone with a shy smile, her eyes scanning the room. "I didn't set out to change the world," she admitted. "I just wanted to help people feel seen, valued, and loved. If we've achieved anything worthwhile, it's because of the collective effort of everyone here tonight. Thank you for believing in our vision." As the evening unfolded, performances showcased the talents of disabled artists supported by the Foundation. Dancers spun gracefully across the floor, musicians played soulful melodies, and poets recited verses that brought tears to many eyes. Among the attendees was Ethan, camera in hand, capturing candid moments of laughter, joy, and connection. His photographs would later be displayed in a special exhibition titled Moments of Humanity, dedicated to celebrating the impact of the Foundation's work. Near the end of the night, Richard approached Maya, his expression thoughtful. "Do you remember that first dance?" he asked, nodding toward Ethan, who was laughing with a group of young dancers. "How could I forget?" Maya replied with a grin. "I think it's time for another," Richard said, extending his hand. Without hesitation, Maya took it, and together they joined Ethan on the dance floor. For a few precious minutes, the three of them swayed to the music, surrounded by friends, family, and supporters. It was a moment rich with symbolism, a testament to how far they had come and the legacy they had created together. As the song ended, Maya glanced at Richard, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." "No," Richard replied softly. "Thank you. You've changed my life, and so many others, in ways I'll never be able to repay." In that moment, amidst the laughter and music, it was clear that their story wasn't just about charity or ambition. It was about connection, the kind that bridges divides, heals wounds, and transforms lives. Maya's act of kindness on that fateful night in the restaurant had sparked a ripple effect, touching hearts and inspiring action far beyond what anyone could have imagined. As the gala drew to a close, Ethan snapped one final photo. Richard, dancing proudly with Maya, their faces lit with joy. It was a picture that perfectly encapsulated their journey, a testament to the power of empathy, courage, and love. And though the night eventually ended, the legacy they had built together would endure, reminding future generations that even the smallest acts of kindness can lead to extraordinary change.